the mobile platforms. We'll talk about what are the native apps, meaning the native applications. We'll talk about how IronSpeed Designer supports the native applications. I will actually demo how to generate the Android application using the IronSpeed Designer. I will also demo how to generate an iOS application using the IronSpeed Designer. I will also talk about the details that you need to know in order to generate these applications. We will also talk about how the IronSpeed Designer supports the geolocation functionality in the generated native applications. So the mobile platforms. The mobile platforms are becoming very popular these days. So there are a variety of operating systems and the devices or the different platforms available these days. Of course, the Google and Apple has dominated the market. There are different browsers available, and the challenging part is to support the mobile applications or your mobile pages on different browsers on different platforms at the same time. Thanks to IronSpeed Designer version 10.0, which already supported the mobile pages for basically the mobile pages for different types of browsers. But remember that these were just the regular mobile pages supported in a regular mobile browser. Now, from version 11.0, IronSpeed Designer has started supporting the native mobile applications. We'll talk about what the native mobile application is. So, as you know, each and every mobile application has associated and some operating system with it. Now, this operating system has different applications are written in different in a language which that operating system can understand. So let's take an example of the Android operating system. Let's say if we want to write an application which Android application system can understand, that it needs to be written in a language which that particular operating system will understand. In this case, it's going to be Java. In case of iOS, it needs to be written in Objective-C. So the native applications are written in a particular language called as native language, which, okay, I'm going to stop. Yeah, okay, we are having some audio issues. So I'm holding for Jill.
Ladies and gentlemen, can some of you let me know if you're hearing us okay? Because we've had some reports of some audio problems. Okay, I'm getting some mixed reviews here. Some people are saying we're fine. Let's see. Others are saying that there's a little bit of breaking up. So let me see what I can do. Give me just a minute. Thank you for your feedback. We'll see what we can do. One thing you might want to try is if you're listening through your headset, turn your volume up, but it's best quality to listen through your phone. If your audio is really bad, then you might want to try hanging up and dialing again. Sometimes that helps. One moment.
Okay. Sure. Okay. So we were talking about the native applications. So as you know, the native application is nothing but the application that can be downloaded from the App Store. Once the application is downloaded, you can launch the application using your mobile device through a small icon, and it runs as if it is a part of your mobile device. So that's what the native application basically means. So now, IronSpeed Designer supports the native applications. What it means in terms of native applications inside the IronSpeed Designer. So in order to support the native application, IronSpeed wanted to achieve certain goals to support these applications. Of course, the foremost important thing is the application should be downloadable from the App Store so that it should be very easy to distribute through the application store. So far, IronSpeed Designer supports the Android and the iOS applications. So of course, this application should be accessible through the icon on your home screen. Then this should be the data-centric application. What I mean by the data-centric application is your regular application, the generated application, should be able to perform different types of operations on the database. Simple operations that you can imagine, the creation, or the deletion, updating your records, or reading the records from the database. So everything should be possible using the native applications as well. It should support remote databases, meaning your database won't be located on your mobile device, but it will be resided somewhere remotely, and then the mobile application should be able to access that database and support it. Also, the generated application should be able to support the application which is hosted on a server outside the mobile application. Along with it, it should support the geolocation. Now, it is also very challenging to support the native applications for different types of devices, making very few changes to them. What I mean by that is, let's say, whenever the application is distributed as a native application, tomorrow, let's say we want to change some of the screens for the generated mobile application. So it should be very easy to make these changes for different platforms. So using the IronSpeed Designer native app, it is possible to achieve these goals. So what IronSpeed Designer has done is, so the regular web application or the website that is generated using the designer, as an example, you can generate the mobile pages using the, so you need to generate the mobile pages using the IronSpeed Designer. Once you have generated your mobile pages, you get your web applications. Now this is the application that you are going to host on your server. This is the hosted application. It should be accessible through the browser. So this particular part has nothing to do with the iOS or the Android application. This is a simple web application part, which is generating the pages and hosting your application on your web server. Once you do that, then you come to the deployment wizard of the IronSpeed Designer and generate your Android application using the URL, so that whenever the native application is launched, within the application, internally, it actually redirects to the URL that you have specified while generating the application. Meaning, it's the hybrid native application. Although it can be downloaded from the App Store, whenever you launch the application, it is actually running the website that you have already specified while generating the application. It does support the geolocation, but remember that it won't work offline. So there is no database on your mobile device, and people will need the internet connectivity in order to access your application. Now, what are the advantages of creating the hybrid native applications? The biggest advantage that I can think of is making the changes to the application is extremely simple. Making a simple change is nothing but coming to the IronSpeed Designer, making the modifications to your mobile page, and deploying your application to the app server. Imagine that there is no hassle of changing any modifications or updates to your existing mobile application, which is already in the store. It's just about updating the existing mobile pages and putting it on the server. This effect is going to take place for your Android applications as well as for the iOS applications. So it's very easy to build the ASPX pages using IronSpeed Designer. Then your mobile pages and the web pages can coexist inside the same application. So as you all know, IronSpeed Designer has been a master in generating the website and the web applications. So along with it, you can also generate the mobile pages, and the entire application, you can host it on the same server. This is the functionality is equivalent to the full-size web pages. So you can take all the advantages that you have in the web pages. You can do all the customizations that you want and get the full advantage of the generated code. Now, there are different page styles that are supported by the IronSpeed Designer. What I mean by the page styles is, whenever you generate an application, you select a UI design that are that are been already supported by the designer. So they are being categorized as the modern, great, and the classic page styles. So you can pick any page style and generate the pages for the web application. Similarly, you can use the same page styles and generate the mobile applications. All necessary page types are supported for the mobile applications as well. What I mean by the page types is, designer support the page types like the creation, the add record page, the edit record page, show record page, show table page, or the gallery page. All these pages are also supported for the mobile application. Whenever you generate a web application, Anspeed Designer generates 3 different layers. One is the presentation layer, second is the business layer, and third is the data access layer. So all these layers, the data access layer and the business layers are completely common for your web application and the mobile application. You can also use the existing databases like the Access, SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, SQL Azure, and the SQL CE as well. So the code model generated for the mobile application is just the same as the regular web application. Then there are same base classes that are being used. What I mean by the base class is those who are not aware about the Anspeed Designer generated web application. Whenever you generate an application, there is a DLL for the base classes that is being used by each and every generated application, which contains the additional classes or the functionalities that you can use in your application if you want to customize your application. So this is just an additional DLL that you can think of. Then there is a customization model that has been supported. You can use exactly the same customization model that you have been using so far for the generated web applications. Now, before moving to how to generate an Android application, let's take a look at how to generate a simple application using the Anspeed Designer. So this is the Anspeed Designer screen. What I'm going to do is generate the mobile pages. Okay. So let's try to build an application. This is the application wizard which I am using in order to generate the regular web pages. You're also going to use the same application wizard in order to generate the mobile pages. Now look at the page styles that are being supported that I talked about in the presentation. So they are being categorized as the modern grid, and the classic. For the demo purpose, let's pick one of the page styles. Let's say Amaron as an example. Moving forward, you can pick the database of your choice. You can see on the left-hand side different databases that are being supported by the designer: Access, SQL Azure, SQL Server, SQL CE, MySQL, or Oracle. Once you pick the database, you can choose the database of your choice. I'm going to choose the sample database that we already include along with the Anspeed Designer. After that, you can select the pages that you would like to generate for the tables of your choice. So on the left-hand side, you see the tables from the database that you have selected. Now let's pick the categories table. We don't want to generate any web pages. We can just generate the mobile pages for the demo purpose. Let's choose the categories and the products. The middle section shows the different page types that I was talking about. As you can see, you can generate the add, edit record pages or the report mobile pages, etc. Then there is a concept of virtual primary keys. I'm not going to talk about this concept right now. You can attend our different webinars or take a look at the online help in order to understand what the virtual primary keys or virtual foreign keys are in Anspeed Designer. You can pick the languages of your choice or the languages that you want your application to support. You can pick more than one languages. Currently, the selected language is English, but I can pick more if I want. Then in the application step, you choose your application name. This is the name that will be visible to your customers. This is the application folder where the application will be generated. You can choose the application type of your choice. Then you can pick the code language, which is C# or VB.NET. For the demo purpose, let's pick the C#. You can choose the different .NET framework from the available ones. Currently supported ones are 3.54 and the 4.5. Let's pick the latest one, 4.5. Then you can choose the different Visual Studio solution file of your choice. Let's pick the Visual Studio 2013 and the SQL statement generation. It can be stored procedures or inline. Let's keep it simple and choose the inline. I'm going to generate the application. Now, Anspeed Designer is generating different layers for us. It's generating the presentation layer, the business layer, and the data access layer. You can see how the different pages are being generated here. These counters will get incremented as, as pages get generated. It's preparing the table definitions. Shortly, it will start generating the pages. It's generated the project files. Now it generated the code files, the ASPX and the ASCX files. Okay. Still generating the application. Okay. It has finished generating the application. Now I can close this. I'm going to show you in the live preview how the mobile page looks like. You can see that this is how your mobile page looks like when you run your when you see the your page in a regular mobile browser. I'm not referring to the native application, but I'm referring to your regular mobile browser. So this is how your page is going to look like. So you can navigate to different pages through the menu. It's going to look like this. Now, once you generate your application, the next step is to generate the deployment for this application and host this application on a server. Now, let's quickly take a look at how to generate the deployment. So I just go to the Tools, Deployment Wizard, pick the deployment type of your choice. Let's pick the deployment folder. You're going to pick the deployment folder first. You're going to go to the next step. And then I'm just going to click Finish. So this is the place where it's going to generate the regular deployment for the application. First, it builds the application. Once it successfully builds an application, it will generate the deployment folder for us. Okay, so it has generated the deployment folder called as myapp1_deploy on the desktop. Let's take a look at it. So this is the generated application, generated deployment folder. Now, this is the deployment folder. Now, you're going to deploy this application to your application server, anywhere where you would like to host your application. I'm not going to go in detail and explain like how to deploy your application actually to the deployment server. You can use our online help, which explains in detail how you can do the regular deployment. So what I'm showing is once we deploy an application, this is how our mobile start page would look like as an example. So what we're going to do is we will need this URL in order to generate the Android or the iOS application. So far what we have done is we generated the simple mobile pages using the IronSphere designer and deployed this application to the application server, which we can so that we can access this application using a regular browser. This is the simple process that we have followed so far. Now let's move to our presentation, and I'll explain what needs to be what needs to be done in order to generate the Android application. Now, in order to generate the Android application, there are certain prerequisites, meaning there are certain softwares that you would need to install before generating the Android application. These softwares are required in order to build your Android application, in order to sign your application, so that you can deploy your application directly to the App Store. So the required softwares are Java Development Kit, called as JDK. Then you would need the Android SDK, and you would need the AND for Apache. So I'm not going to go in detail and explain how exactly you're going to download these softwares, but you can just simply follow this help link, which explains what all the versions that you would need to install and how to install these softwares on your machines. Now, once you install these machines, there are certain environment variables that you would need to set. Now, there are certain important things I would like to mention about the environment variables. First of all, let's take a look how to set the environment variables. So I'm using the Windows 7 operating system. There are different ways to set the environment variables with different operating systems, Windows operating systems. For the demo purpose, let's do it for the Windows 7 operating system. I go to Windows, right mouse click on the computer, go to the properties, and go to the advanced system settings. Over here, I can see the environment variables. If I click on it, something like this, the environment variables window pops up. Now you can see there are user variables and then there are system variables. We are interested in setting the system variables. Now we need to set 3 types of variables. One is &_home. So what this variable does is nothing but the path to where you have installed your &. Note that there are no spaces when you specify the environment variable. Similarly, you're going to go to the Java_home environment variable, which specifies where you have installed the Java. And the third environment variable is path. So you're going to set the path environment variable. So I have copied this value of path environment variable in my notepad so that I can show you what the values you need to set. So these are the values that you would need to set. You don't need to pay close attention to what I'm showing right now, but everything, how these values are being set, has been explained in our online help with the step-by-step process, including the screenshots. I would encourage you all to follow these steps and then set these environment variables. Make sure that there are no spaces whenever you add these variables, whenever you add values to the environment variables. So these are the 5 values that you would need to set whenever you set the path environment variable. Once you set these values, you would need to restart your machine so that these variable values can take an effect. Now, whenever you install the Android SDK, it's going to look like this. This is the place where I have installed my Android SDK, and it's the bundle where you get the Eclipse, the SDK, and the SDK Manager EXE. If you double-click on the SDK Manager EXE, it opens up the SDK Manager, where you can see all the installed APIs or the platforms or all the packages that are being installed as a part of the SDK. So these are the packages that are being installed right now. So what we are interested in looking at the API version number. So API 19 has been installed on my machine. So we need to know this number because we will need to use this number when we generate the Android application. That's the reason why I demoed it to you. Now let's move to our application. The next step is to use the application deployment wizard of IronSpeed Designer. Now again, I will switch to the IronSpeed Designer. Now you would go to the Tools, Deployment Wizard. Now let's pick the Android application. Go to the next step. This is the place where we are going to specify the URL or the start page of your application. So when you deploy an application, you get the URL something like this. Or wherever you are hosting your application, the URL, you would need to use that URL and need to specify the URL in here. Because whenever someone launches an native application, this is the place where they will get redirect to whenever they launch an application. But there are certain settings that you would need to do before generating an application. Let's take a look at the different properties that you would need to set. First thing is the application name. You can change the application name if you want, or all the properties specified in the property sheet. Whatever the application name that you would like to name, this is the name that will be used in the App Store. So your application will be named as My App 1. So you need to edit it with whatever name that you want. You can choose the header background color, meaning that it's just whenever you launch an application, whatever the background color of your header is, you can change the color. What the internet connectivity message is, let's say whenever someone launches an application and there is no internet connectivity, whenever they are connected to, whenever they open an application, there needs to display a message saying that they need an internet connectivity to access your application. So this is the message. This is the place where you can specify the message. Then there is a property which asks for if requires user location. If your application requires to access the user location, then you can set this as a true so that your application will be generated, which will ask users if they would like to share their location. If you set it to false, it won't ask users to share their location. Version name is just simple string that will be visible to the users. So you can name your the mobile application with different version names that you want. Version code is a simple integer value used only for the internal purpose. It just represents the version of the application code, but it's not visible to the users. Now this is the Android SDK API. Now when we looked at the Android manager, we looked at the API version number, which was 19. This number needs to match with the number that has been specified in the property sheet 19. So tomorrow, as an example, if you have the different API version, let's say 19 or 17, then you need to put that number in the Android SDK API. You might have the higher number as well. That's fine as long as you match the number that has been installed on, or the package that has been installed on your machine. Then there are different dimensions available for the application icon. As you know, that Android device has the different screens available. In order to do that, we need to support different dimensions. So specify the icons with different sizes. On the right-hand side, you will specify the path from where Anspeed Designer needs to copy your icon. So this is the relative path to your application. So it refers currently to the images folder, and whatever the name of an image is, you can replace these images, or you can put a different path of your choice. Then you can choose the application logo. Application logo will be displayed whenever someone launches an application. It will be shown on the left-hand side corner. I will show where exactly it will be shown. Then there are key generation properties. What are the key generation properties? So whenever you want to submit your application, Android application, to the App Store, the application needs to be signed with the public-private key pair before submitting it to the App Store. Now, in order to generate the public-private key, we need to specify all these properties. So most of the properties are self-explanatory. Just keep in mind that the password length needs to be at least 6 characters. At the bottom, it specifies the help with the proper conditions. So I'm going to specify these properties quickly. Without specifying these properties, I cannot move forward. Okay. Once I specify all the properties, it allows me to save it. Save the properties. Now the next step is simply click on the next button and click on the finish button, which will actually start generating the Android application. So as you can see, this is the deployment folder that it has named, where the Android application will be generated. So let's click on the finish button and let it generate the Android application for us. So first it is trying to build the application, and then it generates actual Android application. I'm going to show you how this application looks like, or what is the generated folder structure, and I will also try to explain what each folder means. Application has been generated. I'm going to close it. Let's go to the generated application. So this is the folder structure that you see when your Android application is generated. There are 4 different things. So let's take a look at them one by one. The APK, this is the most important file. This is the APK file that you would need to submit to the Android App Store whenever you submit or publish your application. This APK file is already signed, so you don't need to worry about signing the APK. Now, this is the application. My app 1 is a generated application which contains all the Android files that are being used. The only file that you will be interested, or Anspeed Designer has really generated the code, is this file, the main activity.java. This file contains all the generated code, and you can simply see that this is the place where it actually launches the website. It just loads the URL inside of WebView. You can customize this application if you want. Then there is a key store. So key store is nothing but we had specified all the properties in order to generate the key. So we have generated the key and kept it in your application folder so that you can use the same key in future if you want. And then this is nothing but the dependent project for the My App 1 so that we can use some of the Google services like the internet connection or the geolocation functionality, etc. So we have already generated the Android application. Now you are ready to submit your application to the Android App Store. In order to publish your Android application, you can just follow this link. This is not rocket science. It's extremely simple. You just need to create your account with the Google, and then they will ask you different questions and ask you to submit your APK. If you follow these instructions, you'll be able to distribute your application through the Google Play Store. Once your application is published, this is how your application will look like when someone downloads your application on the mobile device and try to launch an application. So as you can see on the left-hand side corner, you see the application logo. So in the property sheet, we had specified the images for the application logo. This is the place where you're going to see it. This is the back button. This is the header background color. And the middle portion that you see is nothing but your mobile page. So the only part of the Android application is the left-hand side header, the header background color, and the back button. The middle portion is nothing but the mobile web page that we generated using the IronSpeed Designer. On the right-hand side, you just see the show table page for the sales representative. That's how you generate the Android application. Now, similarly, we are going to look at how to generate the iOS application. So the first thing that you would do is go to the deployment wizard, pick the Apple iOS application, go to the next step, and the same URL that we have specified for the Android application, we need to specify the same URL in here. Then we would need to specify certain properties. This is the place where we are going to specify different properties. Again, almost the same properties. The only difference is the iOS spotlight icons. So the spotlight icons are nothing but these are the images whenever will be displayed whenever someone tries to search an application inside the Apple App Store. So let's say someone tries to search with their application, then they will be then your application icon will be displayed. So you would like to specify the images that you would like to see whenever searches for the application. So this is important to specify all these images. If these images are not specified, or if you do not follow the dimensions that are specified in this property sheet, then there are chances that your application will get rejected. So take a look at the dimensions closely and specify the images with exact specified dimensions in the property sheet, or in the path in the property sheet. You can save the properties. One thing I forgot to mention here is that there are no key generation properties here like the Android. Why? Because it is not possible to build the iOS application using the Windows operating system. Apple doesn't allow it. So what we are going to do is we are just going to generate a simple iOS application. So you just go to the next and then finish. It's going to generate the iOS application which is not built. So you would need to build your application using the Apple operating system. So let's take a look at the generated application. So this is the place. This is just one folder that has been generated. Even if you try to take a look at it, these file types are not supported by the Windows operating system. So it's actually a file type that is supported by the Apple operating system, and you can see that it is recognized as a folder structure in the Windows operating system. So what you need to do is you just need to copy this application to the Apple operating system. So what you're going to do is log into your Apple computer and download the Xcode version. What Xcode is, it is nothing but your IDE to develop iOS applications. So it's standard for generating the iOS applications. You need to download the version of 5.1 or later. Once you do that, you would need to copy the generated iOS folder onto the Apple application, and you would just open the file named as Xcode project using the Xcode. Once you open that file, you can build and run the application. It's very simple. You literally need to click on one button in order to run this application. You can follow the instructions at this URL to run the iOS application. And in order to distribute the application, of course, you would need to follow all the Apple instructions. The reason why I am not, this is beyond the scope of this webinar, explaining how to actually deploy the application to the Apple App Store. There are certain things that you would need to do. You would need to register for the Apple Development Program. Then you would need to create the publishing profile for your application, and then you would need to associate with your application. These things are very well explained by the Apple, and they are very standard. The best way to use this, all these instructions is using this website. But I would suggest you to use the Xcode IDE. It becomes very simple to follow these instructions using this IDE. Now, this is the application. This is the application that's going to look like whenever someone downloads an application from the App Store and launch it through the whatever the application icon. So as you can see, the same thing. The left-hand side is the application logo. This is the back button, and the middle portion is nothing but the actual mobile page that we have deployed on the server. Now, as you would have observed, it looks exactly same as the Android application. The best part is, tomorrow, if you decide to change your menu page, you just need to change the menu page using the Iron Speed Designer. You won't even change your deployment. What you're going to do is come here, go to the menu page. This is the layout editor. You can modify whatever changes that you want to make. You're going to build your application, generate the regular deployment folder, and deploy it to the same server where you had earlier deployed. So whenever you launch an application, you will see the updated screen for the already submitted native application. So it avoids you resubmitting your application even when you have modified the changes, even when you have made the changes to your application. So we have already looked at the demo. I'm going to explain how to use the geolocation when using the native apps. Currently, there is a small customization that needs to be made in order to take the advantage of the geolocation formulas that are supported by the Iron Speed Designer. So imagine that we have two things right now. We have the native application, which is written in the Android, which is written in the platform-specific language, Java or Objective-C. We want to communicate. We want to provide the location of the mobile device to our website. Now, this location is provided from the mobile device to our URL to our website in the form of URL parameters or application. Now, in order to retrieve these parameters, what you're going to do is using the configure application wizard, you're going to set the property retrieve user location to yes, so that it will generate the appropriate code. I can go to the designer and show you where exactly you need to set this property. So you go to the tools, go to the configure application, go to the geolocation, and you set this property to yes. Click on the save button, and then you just click on the build. So this is what you need to do in order to generate, use all the formulas for the mobile application. Once you do that, you would also need to add the below customized code inside the page_load method of your base application page. So again, take a look at it, what exactly I mean by it. So this is the generated application, which I'm going to open using the Visual Studio. I would like to show where exactly this customization needs to be added. So in the shared folder, there is a file called as base application page. I would go there and then search for the event called as page_load. So this is the place, and this is the place where I'm going to copy paste the code that has been written right here. So you just need to copy paste the code inside the page_load method. Once you do that, you can use all the geolocation formulas that are already supported by the IronSpit designer. What I mean by that is, let's say we go to the add categories page, mobile page, and then we want to display the location of a browser. What you can do is, we can modify the existing variable, let's say category name. Go to the formulas tab. Instead of categories default value, we can use different formulas like any geolocation formula, get browser location, or any of these formulas you can use in order to get the geolocation. So that's all about today's webinar. So as you know, there are other training courses available. We have different webinars available, getting started with IronSpit Designer, the intermediate IronSpit Designer, advanced IronSpit Designer. You're welcome to attend any of the webinars. There are also third-party training courses that takes place on a regular basis. You're always welcome to use our online help, which is located at ironspit.com/help. There are more than 1,000 pages which are updated, kept always updated. So feel free to use them. You can always use our technical forums where other developers try to answer your questions. Just one request that whenever you post your question on the forum, just try to provide as much information as you can so that someone can answer your question properly. And then whenever you want to buy the IronSpit Designer, just contact your sales representative, and then you can generate the mobile applications in one day. So let's take a look at the questions if we have any. Okay, let's go through the questions. Sure, here is the question I'm going to read out loud. Implementing the security would be good. Can you show how this affects the generated mobile application? Yes, that's a very good question. So that's the advantage that we're going to get of the IronSpit Designer generated application. You're literally going to go to the security wizard right here, and you're going to choose whatever the type of security that you want. Now imagine that, of course, you won't be able to use the SharePoint security, or you won't be able to use the Windows authentication since you're going to run it on the mobile device. But you will be able to use the database level security. You can apply the roles if you want, and then you just apply the security like the way we apply it regularly. So I can show you quickly how to set up the security. As an example, let's choose the database security. You just go to the next step, pick the table of your choice. As an example, let's pick the sales representative table. You would specify the username, password, and user ID field. Go to the next step. You can choose the pages for which you would like to apply the security, and then simply click on the finish button. I'm sorry, you also need to click on the set button. You would also need to click on the set button so that the security will be applied to those particular pages. But I can show you here, if you take a look at it, the page that we have already generated. So here is the sign in button. If you click on the sign in, the security, it asks you for the username and the password. So this security works exactly the same way that it works for the regular web application. So moving on to the next question. Okay. So when ready, are there plans for the Windows Phone? Of course, yes. If the demand grows, so yes, definitely we will support the Windows Phone as well. So yes, people are these days using the Windows phones, and then we will support the Windows application in future. Someone is asking if they get the copy of the presentation that includes the links to the online help. Yes, you're going to get the copy of the presentation through the email in few hours after the presentation. let's move to the next question. Are those variables set on the development machine or on the deployment server or on both? That's a very good question. All those variables needs to be set only on the development machine. It has nothing to do with your deployment server. The reason why we need to set these variables is you just need to able to build your Android applications. Once the application has been built and the APK is generated, it has you don't need to make all these changes to the deployment server. On the deployment server, what you're doing is you're just submitting your web application. You're not deploying your Android application to the deployment server. Android application only goes, or the specifically .apk file generated for the Android application goes directly to the Android App Store. The next question, after deploying as a regular app and copying the mobile app URL as seen through the web browser until the Android app number, I didn't get the question. After deploying as a regular app and copy. Ima has asked a question, and I would request her to submit her question in detail. I didn't understand what exactly she means. If you can elaborate, I'll be more than happy to answer your question again. The next question asked by Tulip, she's asking, do you generate the mobile application separately from the regular application? If not, which URL do you use? That is, do you need to use the mobile URL? Extremely good question, Tulip. So here is what's going to happen. So as I said, your mobile application and the web application can coexist, meaning whenever you generate an application, you can access the mobile pages as well as the web pages using the URL. Of course, you're going to have the different URLs for the mobile page and for your regular web application. As you can see, here is the start mobile page. You just right mouse click, and this is the start page of your mobile application. So you're going to provide the URL for your mobile page and not for your regular web page. So there is a way you can also change your start page. For the mobile page, I can set my, as an example, the show categories page as my start page. So if I set this as a start page, I can also provide the URL for this particular page while generating the application. Next question from Hassan. How do you store the user location on the database? Normal latitude, longitude fields, or it will store the exact address? So it's not about storing the address inside the database. So what it is trying to do is, it will be your customization if you would like to store the location inside the database. Over here, we are just providing the functionality so that you can access the location of the user, and it's made available through the different formulas which you can access. If you would like, you can store it in different formats. You can save the address in terms of latitude, longitude. You can also save the address as an actual address, meaning in the text format. So there are different formulas which allow you to get the address in different formats, and it's up to you how you would like to save the address in your database. Next question is from Jeremy, and here is the question. For the initial hosted application, does it matter if that is a website versus a web application? Absolutely no. It doesn't matter whether you are generating the website or the web application. As long as your website or the web application is accessible through the internet, it doesn't matter. Meaning, whatever the application that you have generated, it should be accessible through the browser URL. It's as simple as that. So it doesn't matter. Next question is from Hassan. For the start page URL, are you copying the URL after I log into the app if I have the security settings? So it's up to you. If you have applied the security to your application, I would rather suggest you to give the URL to the security page because let's say you have generated a few mobile pages and you would like to apply the security to all of your pages. If you do that, then I would rather prefer to give the URL to the security page So once that is done, people will get redirected to the security page first, and then they will get an access to the all other pages inside the mobile application. Next question from Jeremy. Does Google Store/Apple Store handle detecting updates in an application and notify the user on their mobile device that an update is available? To be really frank, I don't have answer to your questions right now. But what I can do is I will figure that out, and I will let you know if you get the notifications about the updates available. As far as I remember, there is one property that you need to specify using which they do notify you whenever the next version is available. But I'm not sure about it yet. The next question from Hassan. Is it possible to map the latitude and longitude to its address? For example, you specify the latitude longitude maps to whatever the street. So this question is not related to the mobile application, but in general, I can explain what you are asking. So let's say whenever you have the latitude and longitude information available, Iron Speed Designer has supports the functionality to map your use the geocoding and map your addresses to the actual address. But in order to do that, you need to download the geolocation, the library from the Google, and then you will be able to use this functionality. But this functionality has already been provided by the Iron Speed Designer, meaning we do support the mapping of addresses. Is ISD using PhoneGap? If not, why not? That's the very good question. So no, we are not using PhoneGap. As you can see, I already showed you, we actually generate the Android application. These people use, PhoneGap generates the HTML5 application. We don't generate the HTML pages. We actually generate the Android application. In order to keep it simple, we don't want to use the third-party applications unnecessarily, because it's very simple to generate the Android or the iOS application. So we prefer not to use the PhoneGap. And as I mentioned in the presentation, there are different advantages that I wanted to take with the existing designer functionality. So it's not, so we don't use PhoneGap. Next question is from the Peter. The question says, besides having the application available in the App Store, Google/Google Play, what is the benefit of executing the app via the native app compared to executing it using the mobile browser? To be really frank, people want their presence in the mobile app store. So absolutely there is no difference. Whenever you launch an application using the small icon or the native application, or whenever you launch it using the mobile browser, it does exactly the same thing. But people want their appearance in the store, so it's better to provide the native application. Next question. We only build the iOS app once, and going forward, we just deploy normal non-native app to the server, and the iOS and Android apps will update by itself. Absolutely. That's what you're going to do. So you generate the iOS app only once. So you need to make sure that you generate the very good looking application thanks to Iron Speed Designer, which supports different page styles, which you can use. So once you generate your application, you submit the iOS apps only once. Going forward, in order to make any changes, you're just going to make changes to your regular mobile pages and deploy it to the server. You're not going to update your iOS application, making sure that you haven't changed your URL. The next question, is this code available in VB? Yes, the code customization that I have mentioned is also available in VB. I'll make sure that the VB code is also, you will also receive the VB code in email. Thank you. This is the next question. Will my native Android/iOS app work without creating any mobile pages? Absolutely no. Without creating the mobile pages, the native application won't work. Imagine that if you do not create the mobile page, there is nothing to show. Meaning, if you do not create the mobile pages, you won't get the URL, and there is the native application doesn't make any sense. Let's read the next question. Are there emulators available to test before deployment? Yes, you can actually test your application on the Android or the iOS devices. We have done that, and you can do the same. Everything is explained in our online help, how you can test your application. Even before submitting an application to the App Store, we always encourage people to test it on their mobile devices and see how it looks like. Next question, could I allow user to click on a map control to launch the Google Maps? Yes, you can. So why it works is it's going to be inside the application. It's the regular HTML code. As long as you can launch your map using a browser, your map control will also work with the Google Maps. Yeah, Krill is taking over.
I'm here.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kirill. I'm Director of Engineering at Speed, and I just came in for a second to give Sanuj a small break to catch your breath, and we'll continue with your questions. So let me tackle some questions, and then I'll switch back to Sanuja. So, question from Joe. Being that the pages of both native and browser-based mobile applications generated by IronSpeed are the same, and both types of interfaces require an active connection, what are the functional advantages of a native mobile app via the browser application app using IronSpeed? Well, we kind of see it two ways. Well, first of all, the main advantage of having native mobile app is the ability to distribute it, because, well, these days, everybody expects, especially if you distribute it not only within your company but outside, everybody expects to find any app in the App Store. Of course, you can send URL to people and ask them to bookmark it and navigate there, but let's face it, it's kind of not the common way of giving people access to your website. The common way would be to just go to browse the App Store, download the application, click on it, and it launches. Another advantage is that it's installed as a native application on the device. So starting it, it's literally clicking the application on the device, which is, again, a better user experience. Plus, you don't need to, explain how to set up this or that. The geolocation may be set up automatically, so user doesn't need to know if you need to enable something in the browser or not. It's just download an app and start it. So it's a matter of convenience, and mostly that's the real difference. The question from Mike. Could you touch about the third-party tools the IronSpeed handles, barcode reading, graphs, rough reader, etc.? Well, you see, the designer generates the absolutely standard .NET application. There is no custom code or anything else. In fact, we do not use any third-party library in the generated application, aside of maybe MySQL library, which allows you to access MySQL database, or like Ajax toolkit. So if you need to use any tool, such as barcode reader, for example, all we need to do is to get a driver, which is usually a DLL, install it. By install, I mean, for example, add to the bin folder, and then you can go to the designer. Let's say if you find, for example, want to read something inside a text box, well, you go to the text box, you add the controls in the editor, whatever you need to surround the text box according to instruction of your barcode reader. Possibly, you might need to go to the page requisites to add the directive so that the driver will be loaded. And maybe, again, it depends on the tool you use and library you use. You might need to add this library to the project. But that's about it. So all things you need to do is the same as you would do with any standard application. Just add the code, add the library and add the references and any code you need. Can we view near-to-me point of interest based on geolocation? A very good question. Of course you do. You can. If this near-to-me point of interest is on your map. As Sanuja, I think, mentioned today, we can easily allow you to include Google Map on the page. And basically, we give you full access. Well, we have, of course, several default pre-configured Google Maps, and they are usually simple ones, like a direction from one point to another point, interactive map, static map, this type of things. However, the interface is completely exposed. You can easily go and create your own Google Map. All you need to do is to go to Base Application Utils. This is the file inside the shared folder of data access layer. And there the whole set of functions we use. So just go to geolocation section and create your own API call, which will include certain point of interest. So basically, whatever Google API supports, you can show. If Google API supports showing gas stations, no problem. You can easily include those gas stations into your map. Now, using geolocation, you can position yourself or position a browser of the user to the point and on this map. So basically, having done this, you can see what point of interest around you. Or you can put differently. For example, if we forget about map and the customizations of Google API, imagine that you are operator of the gas station. So you have a table with records. Each one of them represents a gas station. Similarly, like you will see if you go, for example, to Costco or to any other store, you will see a list of locations. So imagine this list of locations is in your table. Well, then nothing could be easier. You can sort them by proximity to your geolocation of the logged-in user. And then, of course, you will see all the points of interest, whatever is in your database, sorted by location, but by proximity to the browser. Question from Majid. Can we show batch notification to show total number of records, same as the mail up? I'm not exactly sure I understand what do you mean by showing total number of records. If it's a table, you definitely can have a total number of records. It's a simple counter. We have the pagination control, which includes this counter and shows the total number of records. If you're talking about something else, we might need a clarification for that. Question from Rick. Can I just generate the mobile application without going through the trouble of generating web application? But of course, in fact, using this technology we provided in the latest release for the generating of the native mobile applications, you can use any URL. In fact, you can create URL pointing to Google, IBM, Yahoo, or whatever other site you have. So, if you already have a ready website URL, just plug this URL inside the deployment wizard and generate native application pointing to it. The only thing here is that, sorry, that if you want to distribute the application through the App Store, you need to make sure that the application you have kind of is suitable for the App Store. For example, Apple reviews every submitted application in accordance of the terms and conditions of their App Store. But yes, you don't need to really create new application. You can just have existing one. Just put the URL in deployment wizard. Question from Louis. How to use child tables together with parent table on one screen? Well, it depends if you're talking about the mobile application or mobile pages. I will put it to make sure you understand what I'm talking about, or web pages. On the web pages, by default, IronSpeed designers generate child tables together with your parent table. It could be under the parent table in the, it could be inside the record or it could be under the table, depending on which type of the panel you selected in the application wizard. In the mobile pages, you also can have child tables, but they are combined below in the accordion control. They are still on one screen, but we need to scroll down a bit and expand it. There's one limitation though. By default, we only provide detailed tables for the mobile application, for the record parent. So basically, if you have edit record or show record screen on the mobile pages, below you can have detailed children. We do not by default have a panel type for mobile which will include child table and a parent table, just due to the space limitations. However, said that, nothing prevents you from dragging and dropping the child table directly to your to the screen with your parent table. In the design mode, it's just simple drag and drop from the toolbox, and if the foreign key is properly set, designer will automatically configure the relationship between those two tables. Question from Fernando. Can you use both C# or VB to create iOS or Android app? Well, good question. The thing is that native app deployed to Android or Apple device is written on the native language. That's why we call it native app. Basically, it's written either on the Objective-C or on Java. However, the application you pointing to, basically the application which is hosted somewhere on the web server and the one which will be shown on your device, that application could be, of course, using C# or VB. This is your choice. But as I just answered to other attendee, not necessarily you need to show even application you created. Technically, you can show any application, the application which maybe somebody in your company wrote before, or it could be not necessarily with C# or VB. It not necessarily need to be .NET. I mean, URL which you plug in on deployment wizard to show on the native application could be pointing to anything. Question from Concrete. What about plans for offline native iOS application? Also good question. Thank you for that. We actually right now are working on it, and it's not related only to iOS. It is actually related to any devices. We're right now on our plans. We are working on the new HTML5 design, which will include a bunch of HTML5 capabilities, including the offline capabilities. The only trick here is that what kind of offline capabilities or features you might include in such an application. The thing is, as we learned today, IronSpeed Designer specifically was created as a tool for generating data-centric applications, which means that you have some kind of central database somewhere, and you have an application hosted on some web server which uses this database. And everybody can get access to this web application. That's the idea, that one application you created, one database, everybody can go there and see, regardless if this application accessed from the regular browser on your desktop or it's accessed from your iOS or Android device. So this is important because it gives you advantages, as Anuja mentioned today, such as ability to, for example, easily to upload new changes to your application, so you don't need to distribute it through every single mobile device, because all I need to do is to, for example, I've got new table, all I need to do is to generate new page and replace the application on the web server, and everybody who downloaded those apps can immediately see the change. You don't need to push any updates. So, as I said, the application has to be hosted somewhere. Now, how can I work offline if my database is not on the device? It's somewhere a central database with all the data sitting, for example, on the, I don't know, Azure Cloud or on my server or anywhere else. Well, the only application we can think of is that saving the result of one particular page if you suddenly get offline. For example, you were editing a certain record, and then you got offline, temporary, maybe you went to, I don't know, subway station or, I don't know, out of area, crossing the mountains. But you don't want to lose your data which you just entered. So the only application we can think of right now is that we will give you ability to preserve those data until you get online. But, of course, we cannot do something like allow you the complete browsing of the website without being connected because, well, data which you can see coming from the internet, I mean, they're coming from the database placed somewhere not on your device. Along the same lines, I have a question from Heider. Is there any chance of using SQLite database in the future? That's exactly my point. We develop the tool which generates the application, web application, which sits on a web server. It does not reside on your local device. And the reason for that is that the idea is that application gives you access to anybody who can navigate to it to your single database. Right now, we do not have plans of developing applications which reside together with the database on the mobile device. We might change and develop something like this, but as of now, we only develop an application which give you access to the central database. And again, along this line, offline capability is important to save the data which you have been editing on a particular page, but it won't give you ability to browse offline complete website, of course. I have a question from Emma. After deploying as a regular application and copying the mobile app URL, as seen through the web browser, until the Android API number. Okay, this is a statement, it's not a question actually, so I'm not sure what should I answer. Yes, you described the procedure more or less correct. But again, I'm not sure I know what the question is. There's no question mark. Give an example of using these to front SharePoint or SharePoint site. I'm not sure what kind of example you would like. Yes, we currently designer supports SharePoint 2007-2010, and the application can be deployed into the SharePoint, meaning that it will run inside the SharePoint site. And of course, you get access to SharePoint security, so you can have just one login, and to internal SharePoint data, such as list or anything else. And we do have video about it, and you can, of course, find this documentation video on our website. However, when you use the model pages, it also runs inside SharePoint, and it also uses the same advantages such as SharePoint security and any data internal to SharePoint. You just won't see most likely the SharePoint frame around it because it doesn't fit the model screen. So on the model screen, it will be literally looking like a normal application, non-placed in SharePoint, with the advantages of using the SharePoint security. What kind of example can I give you? For example, you might have your application for some accounting purposes, maybe with financial reports or some other things, or maybe your company directory or something else, placed in normal SQL database or any other database. And the application which uses this database is in the SharePoint, so you can log into it using SharePoint security. And of course, you can access those pages on the desktop or on the mobile device, and you can distribute it as the native application to any mobile device. A question from Andit. What versions of Visual Studio does this support? Oh, these support all versions of Visual Studio because, as I again mentioned, in development of application, you are not constrained by anything. So if you develop application for the framework 3.5, you can use Visual Studio 2008 or 10. If you develop application for, let's say, 4.5, you get the choice of 2012, 2013. And for this framework 4, you have, I mean, the combinations are different, but you can use any Visual Studio to develop applications. Said that, I want to emphasize the fact that actually you do not need Visual Studio at all to create the native application. You need those prerequisites which Anuja mentioned, which are the free tools such as SDK and etc., Eclipse, and other tools for developing web application. Again, Visual Studio is not required. It may be convenient, and if you already have a license, it would be stupid not to use it because obviously Visual Studio has much better IntelliSense, and if you would need to write any custom code, I mean, if you don't need to write custom code and all the customizations you need to do could be done through the wizards or design mode or property sheet, then you don't need Visual Studio at all. However, if you want to write some custom code, Visual Studio not needed, but useful because, again, IntelliSense is much more advanced. Also, you would need to deploy your application somewhere before distributing as a, for example, mobile native app. Deploy an application is easier with Visual Studio because it allows you to use those such tools as a publishing or creating a science installer, some things like this. But again, you don't necessarily need to have it. I mean, if you don't have a license, you don't need to run and buy it necessarily. You can live without it. Question from Mayor. If I have website in HTML5 responsive, can I import it to IronSpeed? Thank you for the question. Again, importing existing website, regardless of how it was created, is possible, but you would need to perform certain work, because IronSpeed Designer cannot read anything but its own schema. So if you already have a website, you can access it through the cross-references. You can put cross-references on the button clicks or on the menus. However, you might be able to include it into the same project and in the same folder. You would need to merge webconfig, of course, from two applications, but you can include them into the same folder so that you use the same session. However, there is no way IronSpeed Designer will help you to develop this application further. It might create new pages, but not to modify existing ones. Because, as I said, IronSpeed Designer generates its own schema of the application. This schema obviously not used when you deploy application to production. In fact, it does not include it even. But it is needed to IronSpeed Designer to understand layout and controls of your application. So importing could be done only kind of halfway, meaning that you might be able to merge them, but you won't be able to develop or modify pages which have not been developed in the IronSpeed Designer. I have a question from Deepak. Will IronSpeed Designer be available to Mac Linux environment for development, or it's Windows only? It's Windows only. Yeah, we don't have plans to create a new IDE for Linux or Mac. Sorry. Question from Simon. What type of security is supported, role-based or Active Directory? We support role-based security, Active Directory security, Windows authentication, SharePoint security, and all the mixtures between them. So you might, for example, have Active Directory authentication and role-based authorization from your database, for example, or, again, other mixtures. Question from Deepak. I'm trying to read it. Could expect PHP language instead of ASP.NET? Oh, no. Again, as I mentioned before, we do not have plans of using, so at least for now, for the nearest couple of releases, or maybe more than couple, to use anything but .NET. The reason is not that because we don't like PHP, for example. It's just all the our huge code base, it's actually millions of lines of code in the generation of the ASPX pages, VB or C# pages, etc. It's huge code, as I said, it's more than a million lines. All this code generator designed to generate only VB and C#, and creating something for PHP would mean to create a new set of hundreds of thousands of lines of code, and we rather prefer to focus on .NET. Mainly because that's not that big of a limitation, really. You can host .NET application on the Linux platform either. I mean, there are possibility to have to install the web server the way that it will run .NET application. Also, there is always not this big of limitation of having web server such as IIS on your server. So we prefer to focus our efforts on the new features rather than on the going into the new language. On the mobile application, does it store user credentials on device for reuse later? I do not believe we store user credentials on the mobile devices.
No, we don't.
We do not use any kind of storage vessels on the mobile phones. We can store cookies on your desktop platform so that you next time don't need to type them, but we do not do this on the mobile platform as of now. Question from Haider. Can we do printing or exporting Excel PDF from the mobile page? Well, depends on what you mean by mobile page. If you are talking about the mobile pages inside the developed application, meaning not the native mobile application on the device, but mobile pages. So yes, on mobile pages you can have, of course, export button. I mean, you can. Some of them might be included, some of them could be drag and dropped, and they will behave exactly the same way as the export import button on the normal web page. Now, I'm not sure in the value of having PDF report button. I mean, you can have it on a mobile page, and of course you will see it on your mobile device, on Android or iPhone, because whatever you have on the page, you can see it. I'm not sure about the value of, you can maybe printing may be useful, because I believe that your device could be connected to the network, like Wi-Fi or something, to the printer. Having the PDF export on your phone, well, I'm not sure I can answer right now if there any phones support PDF files to be opened. Possibly yes. If you can save as a PDF file, and for example, your iPhone allows you to save in something as a PDF file in the file system, then of course have a button. The buttons will be the same as for the web application. Question from Paul. I would like to ask a less intelligent question to remove a doubt in my mind. Oh, it's interesting. The Android application can run exclusively on the phone and doesn't have to use the Web2 function. Of course not. It does use the Web2 function. As I mentioned, the data-centric application we develop should be hosted somewhere. So the real application which you see is not on the phone. It's hosted on some web server somewhere. So I would think most apps use the web. Yes, of course. And I'm thinking there are those which do not probably most do. What I'm trying to get is, can all the mobile apps that designer generates run just as well on just a web browser that the mobile phone uses? And yes, of course. The pages you develop on your application are accessible from anywhere, from your phone or from a tablet or from a desktop, anywhere. We do generate different types of pages. Some of them are fine-tuned to be properly shown on the desktop browser, and some of them are fine-tuned to be properly shown on the mobile device. They have different layout. Nothing prevents you from literally changing your URL to point and direct it to web pages if you would like it. It just will be difficult to use because the buttons will be tiny and clicking them will be really difficult. The text boxes will be tiny, typing in them will be difficult. Multi-level menu suppose that you can hover with the mouse and finger might not be exactly placement of the mouse, but you can do this. Said that, any page accessible from anywhere. However, Designer automatically generates the redirect from the default page, which uses the agent from the browser to define if this browser is on the mobile platform or on the web platform. So by default, when you navigate from your mobile device, the default page of your application will figure out that the mobile agent is from, let's say, mobile Safari, and redirect you to the mobile page automatically. However, again, you can hard code URLs to any of the pages. They're all on the web, so all of them accessible, of course. A question from Peter. Have you got confirmation from Apple that they accept these kind of apps that simply only wraps a web page? Once they find this kind of apps, they normally delete them from the App Store. No, they don't. And in fact, you can right now go to the App Store and download our Buckaroo application, which is developed exactly using the same technology which we have been seeing today, using our own tool. We always eat our own cooking, so we use Designer to generate Buckaroo application, and it's deployed to Apple Store and as the Buckaroo app. It was there already for several months, and Apple has no plans of deleting it. In fact, I can tell you that actually we are not alone over here. And we found out that there are a lot of the applications in the App Store.
For example, does the same. Walgreens, for
example, Walgreens, you know, this store, drugstore and grocery store, Walgreens, they read exactly the same. They have right now their mobile application in the all App Stores, which is also a wrapper. So again, it's not a unique thing. And again, we have the proof of Buckaroo application, our own application, which is there for several months. A question from Majid. Can we access the mobile camera to upload images to DB? I will give it to Sanuja to answer.
So no, it is not possible to use your mobile camera at this point of time. Here is the reason why. Imagine that you're just accessing your regular browser. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Kirill? Yeah. Okay. So what we are doing is we are just launching your your regular web application within the native application. So in order to access the camera, these two things need to coordinate with each other and talk to each other. Your mobile camera is sitting on your mobile device. It cannot send your image. So I can say that upload images work only in case of iOS application. Uploading does not work in case of Android applications. We have tested this functionality, and currently we know that it doesn't work on the Android device. That's all I can see. So the next question. What is the purpose of 3 folders in the deploy directory when I deploy for Android when all I need to upload is the APK file? Extremely good question. You absolutely don't need these 3 folders if you do not want to customize an application. The only reason for we provide these additional folders is if you want to customize the generated Android application using the third-party IDE like Eclipse, then you can do that and sign your application on your own. If you don't need it, then all you need is just the generated APK file, and you just can publish it to whatever the app store you want. Can I use the Mac for development? I'm not sure what you mean by the Mac for development. So the way the native application is generated, it does generate the iOS application. In order to deploy, of course, you need to use Mac. So not only Mac, but you will also need the additional IDE called as Xcode in order to deploy this application or publish this application to the App Store. And of course, you can customize the generated application using the Mac and the Xcode IDE. The next question is from Jack. Is it possible to have the app take a picture and then upload it to the database? As I mentioned, currently the upload functionality does work with the iOS, but it does not work with the Android application. So yes, in case of iOS, it works. Next question is from Leon. If the site that the phone app has to access is behind a firewall and thus needs to have the VPN to access, is there any other consideration in this case? I'm not sure if I can answer this question. I will switch to Kirill if he can answer this question. Just this particular question.
Okay, if the site that the phone app has to access is behind the firewall and it needs to have VPN. Okay, if your web server is behind the firewall, there are 2 choices. Either you open the port 80 for this specifically web server, then you have an access. If you need to have only VPN access, that could be a bit trickier. The thing is that whatever our application is doing is not doesn't really matter in this case. If you require VPN to access a web server and otherwise your port 80, for example, is not available, then you need to set up VPN connection. If you're somehow able to set up VPN connection from your mobile device, yes, it will work. If you cannot set up VPN connection from mobile device, no, it will not.
All right, thanks, Kirit. The next question is from Kishore. The question says, is ADK/SDK available for Mac? So yes, for the Mac, they call it as the Xcode, as I said. So in case of Mac, you will need to use the Xcode in order to customize your application. The next question is from Jerry. Does the Google Store have a place I can deploy but not make public so I can test? Absolutely yes. So they have provided an ability so that you can upload your application and then you can do the alpha testing and the beta testing, in which case the application is not available to the public, but you can specify the email addresses that you want. You can register the devices and you will be able to download the application on those particular devices in order to test your application. In fact, we have already done this for our internal Buckaroo application. It's not internal application, but anyways, we have tested it and you can do that. Next question is from Ellie. She's asking, how could I allow access to device camera to take photos and submit it to the server? I already answered this question. Yes, the file upload functionality is supported on the iOS device. So in the regular the designer application, you just need to use the file upload control, using which you'll be able to upload the photos and submit it to the server. Only in case of iOS, Android does not support the file upload functionality so far. The next question is from David. Can the security be set up where there is a non-security page, such as search jobs, then secure the pages where you log in using the security? Yes, the security can be applied to any of the pages that you want. It doesn't matter for what pages you want to apply the security. All you need to do is go to the security wizard of the AMSPIT designer and then set the security to whatever the pages that you want. May it be the searching of the jobs or may it be any other page. It's your choice where you would like to apply the security to. Then again, the next question is from Keith. She's asking, can the native apps incorporate certain third-party API that we integrate into? As long as your third-party applications do work with the browser, the native apps will work with third-party APIs as well. So in simple terms, if you open the URL using the browser and if your third-party APIs do work, then they will definitely work with the native apps as well. The next question is from Ellie. She says it's related. How do I provide server image control so user can zoom/print in? I think that as of now you won't be able to do. We won't support such controls where you can actually zoom in or pinch. But yeah, you want to say?
I want to add on this.
Sure.
Basically, your zooming in and pinching functionality is supported by your device. So if the browser on the Apple or Android phone supports type of functionality, then it will work. Basically, when you navigate to the application, what you see on your phone is nothing else but your web application in the browser. So imagine that if you can navigate from your Android phone to, I don't know, a CNN website and zoom in and pinch, etc., and it works, similar way, it very likely will work with this application because what we use is internal browser control from Android or iPhone. But for that, honest answer right now would be that we didn't try zoom and pitch. So we might try it later on and see how it works on different devices. Again, I can assume that on some versions of the operation system it might work, and some of them might not, depending on the browser version.
Okay. The next question says, is it possible to change the templates for other templates? In bracket it says custom templates. If I understand your question correctly, you're asking about the page styles. So yes, it is possible to change the templates. You can define your custom templates and generate the pages the way you want. It's just that for the convenience, designer has provided the different page styles, but you can go ahead and customize them if you want. The next question is from Dan. Can you make the phone buzz from a generated app while the application is open on the device? Yes, you can do that. In order to make a phone call, there is some particular type of HTML code that you need to generate. So this functionality is not actually related to the native application, but it actually related to your device. So what type of HTML code that they accept, you just need to generate that using the designer. I can add an online help for it, how you can use the phone buzz from the generated app. It's going to be a very simple thing to do. Let's see if I have so I'm switching to Kirill again.
Okay, I have some more questions. So first, before going to the next question, I wanted to kind of reiterate on the common question from a lot of the folks about the file upload, photos upload, and etc. As Anuj already several times mentioned, for Apple or iOS, it works now. For Android, current release we have now uses the current web browser built in the Android, which does not support file upload. However, said that, we are working on it and working on the latest releases of the Android operation system and the new classes and new web browsers included in them, and we hope to have file upload for Android devices available pretty soon, as soon as the majority of the mobile phones on the market will support it. The thing is that when we release application, we always try to support majority of the platforms available on the market, not only the several dozens of the latest who just purchased it yesterday. But again, this is in our plans, and we hope to make it available in one of the next releases pretty soon. Oh, sorry, I missed one more question. So the question from Mark, will IronSpeed support Windows Phone for native application? Well, it will. It definitely will, again, soon. Not yet. The thing is that, always in development you have a trade-off between what features do you include and when you release. So basically, you can include everything and work on this several years, and by the time you release, so nobody needs it already. Or you can include so maybe one or two features and missing some others, but release sooner. We try to find balance between them. So we kind of knew that the market for Android and iOS platforms right now is much, much bigger than Windows Phone. So given the time constraints, we decided to start with those two. But the Windows Phone definitely in plans. It just didn't make cut in this particular release. Would you say that the mobile application developed from IronSpeed Designer is similar to WebView option in the App Accelerator Titanium? Sorry, I don't have any clue what it is, where the pages are simply pulled from the hosted server, which is able to do device detection. Well, by description, that's exactly what we do.
I can answer this question.
Oh, okay. So
this is just from the design it's similar to. Yes, you can say that it's similar. It is just that IronSpeed Designer also supports the CRUD functionality, meaning, as Kirill mentioned, it's we generate the data-centric application. So you have an associated database with your application, which you can access using the native application. Yes, we do use the WebView and just launch your the application that you're hosting on the server. It is similar to it.
Thank you, Sandra. Next question from Mark. Do you have plans to support NoSQL databases such as NoDB, MongoDB, Azure Document DB, etc.? No, we really don't have these in our nearest plans. Again, this is a trade-off of how much time and effort you need to put in certain feature and what kind of features you can present. And we right now see ourselves in the position that we want to focus on the HTML5 offline capabilities and this type of things, not introducing new support for the new databases. Question from Mark: is it technically possible to take a designer application built on Visual Studio and build it with Xamarin?
No, it's not possible to do that. We have a different data access layer and the business layer. So you cannot use the Visual Studio and build the application using the Xamarin.
Oh, okay, so that's the answer.
Yeah.
Said that, technically, again, after you finish developed in the application in IronSpeed Designer, you get the standard .NET application. Of course, it has its own business and data access layers. However, you can do with this application anything you want, and if you want, for example, add certain controls or use some other tool to enhance it, or maybe add some other capabilities, you always can do this because it's nothing else but pure .NET VB or C# code. But modular that you already have your data access layer and business logic created. So if you create new pages with the new logic, that will be fine. Question from Michael: if you use Visual Studio 2013 and specify 4.5 framework, do you have to have 4.5 framework installed on the deployment server? Yes, because if you specify 4.5 framework, that means your application will target 4.5 framework. So IIS, as a web server, should allow running a 4.5 framework targeted applications. And that would be only possible if you have 4.5 framework installed on your production server. Good news, the 4.5 framework is free as any other framework, so unless your server is very old, it would be easy to install it. If you have old server, it might not work, so don't use 4.5 framework. Question from Mia: how do I integrate ads in my mobile application? Again, as we said today several times, you will see on your mobile device whatever is delivered from the web server, or basically the same content that you can see from normal desktop. So just include ads in your web application. So the question is how to include ads in web application. Well, most of the ads is just nothing else but a simple JavaScript which you need to plug in your page, and nothing could be easier than this with Designer. Just take the JavaScript and put it in the page header, or I mean in the page directives area, or in a cell, depending on where you want this ad to be shown. What about tab pages? Tab is capital T, capital A, capital B. I'm not sure what does it mean. If you can,
we have in the regular web pages we have the tabs.
Yes, you, again, as we said already a lot of times, you can navigate to any page we have. For the mobile type of pages, instead of tabs, we use accordion, because tabs generally positioned from left to right in the first place, and second is Ajax tool script control, which not always properly work on the mobile applications, on the mobile devices. But mostly it's not convenient to have wide pages going from left to right, which is tabs. So we, for mobile pages, replace it with the accordion control, which goes from top to bottom, which is much easier to use. Question from Jill Benson. I want to know if this mobile application supports all smart devices, especially smartphones and iPad. It supports any Android or iPhone, Android or iOS based devices. If your smartphone runs iOS or Android platform, yes, it is. If it runs, for example, Windows Phone for now it's not. Or if you use BlackBerry, it's also not supported for now. iPad is, it will be running on the iPad fine. And again, actually, thank you for the question again. With the iPad, it will work perfectly fine, but you know, iPad is a bigger device, and our mobile pages mostly targeted for the phones, meaning that it has less content that you might include on the iPad, because it's actually physically wider, so your finger can touch more buttons and so on. We do not have at this particular second specifically out for the tablet. However, we are working on it literally as we speak, and that would be available very soon in one of the next releases. The special layout for tablets, which will continue to have special functionality for navigation, assuming that instead of mouse you have a finger, so you don't have hover, this type of concept. But we'll have more content than the phone page because the device itself is bigger. So it's coming. Question from Jack. Do the apps support alerts? Do the pages auto-refresh? And if so, at what interval and where is this control property? Not now. However, we, again, considering including several features of HTML5 and including the WebSockets which would support alerts. We are working on it now. I cannot tell you the exact date and what exactly will be included. It very much depends on the what is supported by majority of the browsers. So far, although HTML5 was not accepted yesterday, it was kind of around for some time, but so far there's no one single browser which will support all the features, and some of the browsers support only a handful of them. So which features will be included and which are not will depend on the browser support. But that's one of the things we are thinking through. By the way, what you can do is if you want to have auto-refresh right now, you can use simple JavaScript. Basically, there's a really simple code where you can have a running script when the page load, which will have timeout, for example, for a certain amount of time, let's say 1 second, and after 1 second it could generate a postback or do other things, whatever you need. So it could, for example, if you need to refresh page every 10 seconds, just put the JavaScript with the timeout for 10 seconds. It will sleep for 10 seconds, then it will wake up and, let's say, initiate postback on the page. It will refresh. So you don't need to alert specifically for that. Question from Alan. Can a virtual machine running Mac OS be used to deploy iPhone app? Well, I don't see why not. If you have any machine, virtual or not, running Mac OS, I think you should be able to deploy it as long as it's connected to the internet. Now, question from Hassan. On your website, you have this: create new MIME type in IIS named APK and MIME type application / VND Android package archive. It is required if I don't want to submit Android App Store. Okay, I have a question. If you still want to have native Android application developed, I would say you still need that. But the second question would be, how are you going to distribute it? Well, there are ways. You can, I don't know, attach a device directly to your computer, for example, or put it on your website and distribute. But from what I know, I would say you still need it, even if you don't want to submit to the App Store. But Sanjay, do you have any input on this?
No.
I have impression that it required if you want to start the toolkit, but I would not bet on this. Well, of course, you can try not to create it and start a toolkit and see if it works. Might not. Question from Mark. How can I determine what data types are not supported by Designer with Azure SQL, or all data types supported? I don't know any restrictions regarding the Azure SQL. I know one not supported data type for SQL Server 2012. The file tables are not supported. Said that, I have a hard time imagining how you would use file table on your web application, but this particular data type is not supported. Everything else is supported. I have last question, and if no more questions will be coming in the next 30-40 seconds or a couple of minutes, we will call the day. So right now is the last question from Francis. Thanks for the answer on the web view. It seems that the way to me, I looked at the Bacaro application. I tested this up as well with the old version of Iron Speed we have, so it works great that way. I guess the big issue is data synchronization when offline. Yes, that's what I also think. Have you made any progress here, and do you have any suggestion on this? Yet again, considering that all the data sit on a server, the only way we can see offline is preserving data of your current page. So, for example, you are sitting on the add a new record, let's say, add a new order in your order system. And when you put all the information in your page currently, if you suddenly your connection is broke when you save, likely you might lose those data. So what could be done is that the current page, not all of them, but just the one you are at, is temporarily saved at the local DB. And when you try to save, if you get offline, it will keep you on this page. It will not allow you to go anywhere else, but it will keep you there and use this local DB to repopulate it back when the connection is back. Something to this extent. There might be some other ideas along these lines. We still kind of research what could be done, what could be not. But again, you cannot read new data from your web application when you're offline, so you can't navigate anywhere. You can only maybe preserve the data which you just entered. So that's what we think about. But it's not implemented yet, and it will be in the future.
There is one more question from Rick, which I'm going to answer. He's asking, can you quickly show how to create the mobile application without going through the wizard? I'm not sure this is possible. If at all you want to generate the native mobile application using the Iron Speed Designer, you have to use the deployment wizard, like the process that I have said. I will just reiterate the process that you need to do in order to generate the mobile application. The first thing is you will generate the mobile pages. So we'll generate the regular web application or the website. Then you will create the deployment wizard using the deployment wizard, regular deployment folder. Here is what I refer to. Once you create the deployment folder, you need to put this application on your server where the application will be hosted. After that, you need to again come to the deployment wizard in order to generate the native application, to generate the Android or the iOS application. So to answer your question, no, it is not possible to generate the mobile application without going through the wizard. Let me see if there are any questions. So there are no more questions, and we are calling it off the day. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. All right.